people are enjoying lunch a lot, so we'll be coming in here as we go along. But welcome back to the final session for the interdisciplinary sessions today. Again, welcome. I'm Jim Murch. I'm the Director of the McDonnell Academy, Washington University. And this session we're going to have now is going to be devoted to global air quality issues. And we'll do that first, and then we'll have again another 3MT presentation after that. But the session we're going to have right now, again, on global air quality issues. The moderator is going to be Marcelo Knobel, Rector of State University of Campinas. Actually, we've known Marcelo for a long time. He visited St. Louis years ago when he was an Eisenhower Fellow. Very distinguished kind of honor for international leaders, future leaders. You're a future leader at the time, and you're a full-fledged leader, Marcelo. So anyway, Marcelo then went back to Campinas. His background has been a professor of physics, but he's been very interested in public education throughout his career. He set up a science museum on the campus of Unicamp, State University of Campinas. He's done a lot of things in kind of public intellectual life in Brazil, and today he's serving as the rector of one of the very best universities in the country. Brings a lot of very different interests to bear on what he does. So today he's going to be introducing our panelists. As I tell everybody, I'll tell you, Marcelo, at 2:36, pull the plug on the microphone. We need to keep moving because it's getting a long day otherwise. But anyway, so we have short presentations, then we'll bring the chairs up and have a discussion. And after that, when we clear everything else, we'll go back to our final 3MT competition for the afternoon. So please join me in welcoming Marcelo Knobel.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So now we will have a very interesting session about global air quality issues. Here, as you may notice, here in Beijing, this is especially important, but everywhere it's an issue that we have to deal with. The presenters in this afternoon have not only to make wonderful presentations, but they have also the challenge to keep everyone awake after such a wonderful lunch that we had. So let me now introduce Professor Kebin. He's the Dean and Professor at the School of Environment of Tsinghua University here in Beijing, and he will present some ideas about achieving blue skies in China and beyond. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your introduction. Today I have just a short-term background information before the discussion about the blue sky issues in China and beyond. So today in China, everybody is eager to get the blue sky. It's a sustainable blue sky. Actually, if you look at the satellite information 5 or 10 years ago, northern India and eastern China, that is PM 2.5 information. These two areas is a hotspot for the higher PM 2.5 concentration in the whole world. That is so 5 years ago, the Chinese government established, set up, it's a very ambitious the objective, which means in different regions, BTH, which means Beijing, Tianjin, and Hebei, Beijing and surrounding area. Within 5 years, PM 2.5 should reduce by 25% for the concentration. And others, as the YRD, the Yangtze River Delta, Polar River Delta, has different the objectives. So what happened for the last 5 years? I think it's very important we have to do a lot of work for that. The first one is trying to improve the energy structure. Actually, in China, coal burning is one of the major reasons for the air pollution issue. And for the last 5 years, the Chinese total consumption of the coal from 4.2 billion to 3.9. So, but we still has the electricity economy is increase, but the total consumption of coal use is reduced. So that is a very, and also the ratio of coal to the total energy dropped from 67% to 60% already. And the second issue is from the end of pipe control. So you can see, we just take the SO2 as an example. It's a yellow column. In 1996, China's standard is 1,200 microgram per kilometer is a standard. And then this standard is reduced. 2003 become 400, and 2011 become 50, and today it's 35. So from 1,200 to 35. So we call it the ultra low emission standard has been happening. And also the penetration for the equipment already for 99% for coal-fired power plants, 92% for the NOx control, and also for the other non-power sectors like the cement and also the iron and steel industry. The second problem in China is not only the large power point source. We have a lot of small stove. So we have to switch coal stove for the heating season to electricity. So we have done last 5 years. We have improved, switched coal to gas or electricity. For more than 4 million families has been done around Beijing area. So that is the third one. And actually, they have done a lot, including the clean transportation, including the vehicle and especially the diesel vehicles. And recently, China has just announced the China's 6 standards is equal to Euro 6. So they have doing a lot of fuel economy and also the clean the transportation sector. So all of the efforts has getting the total emission down, especially for SO2. Last 5 years is almost reduced by 60% and 20% for NOx, and also almost 30% for PM2.5. Unfortunately, we have a little bit increase by the VOC emissions. So if you look at a little bit of detail for the SO2 emissions for the last the last 20 years, before 2005, they have increased a lot, but after that, it's going down all the time. Today, in China, compared to 25 years ago, 27 years ago, the power sector total emission of SO2 is only 1/3 compared to 27 years ago. So, but if you look at that in China, the number of the power plants increased all the time, but the red color reduced after 2005, which means they have getting the FGD for the reduction of the SO2 after that, and also 2015 they have some more and more blue spot points, which means they get the ultra low emissions at that time. So if you look at the others, we have SO2 getting down, NOx getting down, but we have even the black carbon getting down. But the bad news is we have the CO2 and VOC is still higher, not a little bit increase today. We still have some working to do in the future. But what happened for the concentration? So according to the Chinese standard and WHO, so we have SO2, NOx, PM2.5, PM10, and CO. All of them in different regions of China, the concentration is getting down. but the ozone is getting higher. So that is today. So we get some blue sky, but even you have a blue sky, the ozone is still relatively higher. So that is our challenges today. So they have some information even for the satellite information. Within 5 years, the changes of SO2 by 72% reduction concentration, and 36 improvements for the NOx, and even for AOD, which means the particulate, is almost 34%. So here we have some information that is actually is information from NASA. It's a publication last December. One of the group, McDonnell University, they have doing the more than 5 years. It's 11 years changes. China's SO2 synchros is really improved a lot. But at the same time, actually the Indian growth, economic growth now is the highest in China in the world. But they have the similar problem like China before 2005. The SO2 synchros is getting higher and higher. So the conclusion in that article is that in 2016, the total emission of India is a little bit go over China, become the #1 countries in the world for SO2 emissions. I remember in 1993, China go over United States, become the #1. So now I think we have India has a similar problem, but the total emission is getting high. So if you look using the modeling system to see how can which control measures contribute to the reduction, and we can get the results is end of type control has contributed to the majority, more than 40%. And also has a problem, has an energy structure improvements and the industrial structure improvements. The problem is that in the future, if you have to continue to improve the air quality, you have less and less opportunity for end-of-pipe control. We have to do more for energy structure and industrial structure. That is the most important trend. And also you can see, if we compare China, US, and EU, I think this 3 units has the similar total area. And then you have compare the total emission of the 5 key the air pollutants. You can see the blue column, today's China, even we have compared ourselves, we have a lot of reductions, but compared to EU and China, the emission density or total emission is still higher. It's almost 3 or 5 times. So we have to cut it down by 16 or even 18% if you're getting the stable blue sky in the future in China. And so today you can see even getting the China's air quality standards, 2/3 of the cities cannot meet the standards. Only several cities meet that, about 20 or 29%. So we still need to working on that. We have using the modeling projection. How can we do that? If we only rely on the end of pipe, it's impossible to do it. So we have to use the energy saving and also the deep energy adjustment structure. And then in the year 2030, we can get all of the cities can meet the 35 standards. Within them, only 1/3 of them they can meet the WHO Peer 2 standard, like the 2025. So in that case, if we do that according to the structure, energy structure, and you have getting some of the don't forget that China has 2 commitments. Domestically is blue sky, and globally is Paris Agreement, that is a low carbon. So if we do that by using the energy structure adjustments, we can meet the air quality standards before 2035. And at the same time, most of the Chinese cities will reach carbon peak earlier than 2030. So that is why, so in the future, our solution is blue sky plus low carbon roadmap. Thank you.
really impressive, the work that has been done here. Of course, there is much yet to do, but anyway, it's clear. I was here in 2013, and now I could feel the difference already. I don't know if I am impressed by the data, but really, it's impressive. Well, next presentation will be by Professor Mutafa Kök. He has a long CV bio. Nowadays, since 2016 to date, he serves as a president of the Middle East Technical University, and he will present the urban and rural air quality in Turkey. Thank you, Mr. Kök.
Mr. Chairman, dear participants, it's my pleasure to be here and to give this presentation. Unfortunately, I'm a petroleum engineer, so it will be difficult for me to give a presentation in the air quality, but I'll do my best on this. Today I will give you a general view about air quality in our country. But as all we know, one of the most useful way of characterizing the atmospheric pollutants is using air pollution indices in a short and long term. And as all we know, the short-term indices are being used for informing or warning the public, but the long-term indices are suited for policy monitoring. So generally, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and the particulate matter, carbon monoxide, and ozone are the pollutants to monitor the air quality. Well, in Turkey, we have a air quality assessment and management regulation which sets the limits for air quality parameters in order to complete with the European limit values by considering the aggregation of three main pollutants as sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and particulate matter. And the main reasons in our country for the air pollution are rapid increase in the population. Nowadays we are around 80 million in population, energy consumption due to industry and housing, and increasing the fuel demands for the vehicles. Well, how do we organize in our country? We have a central organization, is Ministry of Environment and Municipality, and the ministry has branches in every local government, and also municipalities are also responsible in the enforcement, and the local issues are dealt with these two units, ministries and the municipalities. Well, air quality is regulated by Turkish air quality regulation since 1985. Which is enforced by local government and municipality, which is locally, and by the Ministry of Environment and Municipality centrally. It includes emissions and emission standards, and currently standards are more lax than EU directives, but they will be similar to standards using EU directives starting next year, 2019. Well, starting in the 1970s, especially in the winter months, urban air pollution has become a very significant problem, mainly in the big cities like in Ankara, the capital, and Istanbul. It's a big, significant problem, but when we reach the 1990s, there has been a decrease in the concentration of the sulfur dioxide and the particulate matter in urban areas because of the fuel substitution. From high sulfur content and very low quality domestic coal, we reached to the natural gas in residential heating and power generation. And mandatory catalytic converter use in the cars were two main reasons from 1970s to 1990s. Well, in the current state, we have the monitoring work, the central air quality network for SO2, PM10, PM2.5, NO2, and O3 are monitored in all cities. And the data is transmitted and stored in the database in the capital, and real-time data can be accessed via internet. And also, in addition to these three main monitoring cases, we have industrial facilities to monitor the emissions regularly, and the motor vehicle emissions are routinely monitored every 2 years. In Turkey, in our country, we have 199 air quality measurement stations over the country, which is distributed all over the country, but mainly took place in the main big cities. Now, in addition to this 199 stations, we have 10 rural stations which is operated in different parts of the country, generally operated by the universities related departments. Well, I'd like to give you the results of a study which has been performed 2 years ago. This is the study that we performed a study in the yearly average concentrations of SO2, NO2, and PM10 in 20 different stations of Turkey, mainly in the big cities of our country. And if we see the results of the annual mean ambient air concentrations of SO2, we see that only the European standard as a value of 20 was exceeded at only 4 stations. The rest of the 16s, they are at the EU standards, I can say it like that. The next parameter that we check is the annual mean ambient air concentration of NO2, and we see that in 13 stations was exceed of the European long-term standards. And the next parameter was the annual mean ambient air concentration of PM10, and we see that in 18 stations, this values exceeded the European standards. Another parameter that we have seen in the study is that the air quality index. As all we know, we use the value of 1, whether it is less than 1 or equal to 1 or greater than 1. And according to this value, we have monitored the air quality index for 3 air quality monitoring stations in Turkey, and now we reached a solution that only 6 of the stations were better than the EU norms on the average. The rest, 14, was exceeding the EU standards. So we can make an overall overview of air pollution. Well, we can say that the air quality monitoring stations located at big cities, as I have shown, cannot fulfill the EU standards. And we can say that in our country, it can be improved by controlling all the major sources like residential, transportation, commercial, and industrial, and by planning the future to new urbanization areas. So as a result, to increase air quality and sustainable living, there is need for the use of land planning with the air quality perspective and making some strategies, such as encouraging houses and business to close to the urban areas. So, as I told you that, in addition to the Ministry of Environment and Municipalities, the universities, related departments also in charge to monitor the air quality of our country. One of them is our Middle Technical University's Environmental Engineering Department. Generally, 95% of the rural research is carried by our university's Environmental Engineering Department. So after this search of the last 20 years, we see that the rainwater is not acidic anywhere in Turkey. SO4 concentrations are higher than those reported for Europe. And main sources affecting the rural air quality are in western parts of Turkey, in the Balkan countries, and eastern Ukraine, and parts of the Russian federations are quite similar. And we have also operated the acid rain network with our department. We have 10 stations distributed all over the country, and we monitor the air composition of the rainwater. We also monitor the desert dust monitoring by the research studies done in our departments. Now we have already some stations installed. We have 5 more stations are also planned. And we generally measure the particle size distribution at the surface and monitor the upper atmospheric dust transports in these rural areas. We also have an Institute of Marine Science in the eastern Mediterranean coast, and we monitor the we monitor the Mediterranean Sea's pollutions over there. So I'd like to thank you one more time for making the invitation and giving me this opportunity to give some information about the air quality case in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this presentation. Indeed, the measuring of the air is an important factor for understanding what's going on in every country, and apparently Turkey is doing very well on that. Let me now call Professor Ramgopal Rao. He is the Professor of Nanoelectronics, Director of the IIT in Delhi, and he will talk about understanding air quality issues in India and how technology can help. Thank you very much, Professor Rao.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'd like to thank the McDonnell Academy for the invitation to give a talk. I think we started with China, the session, so now we will end with India. I think the two countries which have air pollution as the biggest problem right now. And in fact, this talk, as you heard from the chairman, I am a nanoelectronics engineer. So, but at IIT Delhi, there are many faculty members who are working in this area. So I have been speaking with them, and they are the ones who have actually given me all of this data. So IIT Delhi is closely integrated with the Government of India initiatives in solving the air problem. But I would like to say that I think in India, the seriousness about solving this problem has just begun. I think we were not even talking about it as much as we should have 5 years ago. But now everybody in the country is talking about it. I'm sure things will get addressed in the next few years. India, the population size is increasing. This is one place where we are growing faster than China. And so we have now large number of people to feed. And one of the things is also that we have almost like 600 million children who are below the age of 25 years. I think that's a huge kind of an advantage for India, but it also poses problems, in many other ways, which is what one of them is the air pollution and things like that. And if you look at the energy consumption in India, it is also closely tracking our GDP growth. So that's what you also see. I think India being a developing country, so this problem is also going to increase further. I think the energy and also the pollution, these two are very closely linked. Unless we address them comprehensively, I don't think we will ever see any improvement in any of these kind of parameters. And if you look at the Indian installed capacity of electricity generation today, in fact this is as late as August 31st, so we still have almost like 60% of our energy coming from coal and gas, and both of these are in a way the major pollutants for the country, and that is something that we need to address. But the renewable push in India is really very serious now. Now we already generate almost 30%, 35% from renewables, and Government of India today, the current government is very aggressively pushing the solar, and in fact the solar capacity is currently like 60 gigawatts kind of a thing, and the target is to achieve 175 gigawatts from solar by 2022 or something like that. So therefore, the solar is one thing which is happening. I think it has also come at the right time. While the pollution problems are becoming severe, the energy issues are also being addressed more and more from the renewable sources. I think this combination probably will help us eventually. And if you look at the air pollution, it's indeed a critical issue for the country. And in fact, we are exceeding whatever are the WHO limits by at least an order of magnitude in many cities, which is a major cause of concern. But if you also look at what is permissible and how much higher, this is one slide that shows you that. But I think the pollution levels are reaching alarming levels right now, and which is a cause of concern. And Indian cities are also growing, and they are all becoming the hotspots. And one of our biggest challenges today is the migration of people from rural areas to the cities like Delhi and Bombay. I think unless we address that problem, I think our cities will not be livable 10 years from now. I think that is where the government policies to improve infrastructure and the healthcare in the rural areas is indeed going to be a very critical thing for the country as we prosper further. And the major concerns, as I said, the development, growth in energy demand, but distribution to be equitable, addressing the air pollution issue, and addressing the climate change issue. These are all getting the attention now by from the current government. Hopefully, they will all get addressed. India currently has 1/6 of the world's population, but only 6% of global energy use, and we are going to be one of the largest consumers of energy in the near future. Rapid economic development in recent decades has also thrown up a variety of economic and environmental challenges. The demographic trends, the rising income, urbanization, and industrialization are one of the issues. And 11 of the world's 20 most polluted cities are currently in India. So that is where the issue lies. And I think this has impact on human health and all of that. The power, transportation, and construction, these are the three things where we definitely need to have tighter controls. The particulate matter is the main concern. Most of India's energy is coal-based, and both natural gas and petroleum crudes being imported. And in fact, 85% of our petroleum is imported now. So the coal therefore became the necessity for India. But now with the renewable push, hopefully the balance will shift slightly. And in a growing number of locations, the concentration of nitrogen oxides and SOx concentrations is also a concern. The source apportionment studies suggest a significant contribution of these pollutants come from the power sector, transportation, burning of agri-waste. It is one of the major concerns in India today. For example, in Delhi, much of the pollution actually comes from the neighboring states, where after the farm produce, whatever is left over, they tend to burn it, and that causes huge pollution for the country. So that is one thing we need to do. So we have to address these things at the construction sector level, at the road dust is also a big concern, the brick kilns and the mining. So some of these things need to be done. And the tripling of passenger vehicles is also one major area of growth. In fact, 3/4 is the growth in the last decade. The NOx emissions from heavy-duty trucks and buses, that is one issue. But India has adopted now the Bharat 6, which is equivalent of Euro 6 now. We have actually jumped the Euro 5 and directly gone to Euro 6. We should also address the particulate matter, and now government has become very serious in implementing this. Hopefully, that will also happen. And the indoor air quality is also a major concern. The residential sector, the traditional use of the biomass feedstocks as fuels is the main contributor for the PM 2.5 emissions, accounting almost 65% to the total for the country. 25% of urban households and almost 85% they use the solid fuels for domestic cooking. That is something that needs to change very soon. And government currently is promoting LPG and as a cleaner alternative. And in fact, there are also these programs of Ujjwala and others which have been hugely successful. So government now is encouraging people to use the LPG. And but unfortunately, we also import LPG, which is one of our concerns. And improved use of biomass and solar cook stoves. Now there are major projects in the country for solar cook stoves. Now if that picks up, hopefully that will be a solution to some of our problems. But I think there is a lot of push now in that direction. And also almost 80 million households still use kerosene. That is again a matter of concern for the PM, including the black carbon. And this is the Ujjwala scheme. So one thing which government has done in the last 2-3 years is to distribute the LED lamps. And they are tracking it very closely. As you can see, there is a savings of almost like 40,000 million units in the last few years alone. And that is a huge saving in terms of cost, but also the CO2 reduction of more than 32 million tons per year. I think that is the LED the distribution is one thing which is helping the country in some ways. And we also have both mitigation and adaptation. I think the very ambitious NDC plans now. The major energy challenges are available, accessible, and affordable, and requires deployment of suitable energy technologies. And but how can technology help? There are some examples from IIT Delhi. The transport sector, that is one thing where we need to address issues. The diesel particulate filters, the selective catalytic reduction, exhaust gas recirculation. These are some of the things where a lot of work is currently happening in all our academic institutes, and much of it is being implemented in various ways. The power plants and industries, the tailpipe control and the process improvements is also one thing which is happening. The residential, there again, the improved stoves for solar and biofuels, and the fuel lighting, that is also something that is happening. The agri-residues, this has become a major concern right now. That's also being addressed now. The waste and other livestock kind of issues. And at IIT Delhi, for example, we started this hydrogen-fueled IC engine program, and we currently have on an experimental basis many vehicles running on hydrogen. In fact, we are planning to introduce a hydrogen-powered bus between our main campus and the extension campuses as a technology demonstration. The solar, there is a lot of activity in the country on the solar. We have a solar mission now to develop these technologies. And an integrated study also is being taken up now to monitor. As an engineer, unless you monitor something, unless you can measure something, you will not be able to mitigate things. So the monitoring IIT Delhi is closely working with the Government of India. And we're also, for example, Professor Shantanu Rai is here. Since coal is our main energy supply, since it is coming from coal, there's a lot of activity happening from the clean coal point of view. So these are some of these activities which are happening at IIT Delhi. And even the burning the crop residue, IIT Delhi has taken a lead, and we have now set up a 1 megawatt power generation plant in Punjab, which uses the paddy straw, and this pilot plant is working very well. Now the state government wants to create more such plants in the vicinity where farmers operate, and that is where some of this is happening. This is now the pilot plant that we developed is indeed working very well, and so this is one major activity where we are setting up these pilot plants now. And in conclusion, I think a coherent energy environmental policy is the key. That is where we are now working with Government of India very closely. I think the seriousness is there. Maybe what China has done in the last 10 years might happen in the next 5 years in India. In fact, we have also commissioned many studies in the country to understand how China has been able to address this problem to some extent. At IIT Delhi, we have started a Center of Excellence for Air Pollution Monitoring and Studies, and we are interacting with some Chinese faculty members to address that. I think these are some of the things, and right now the news is not very positive, but hopefully 5 years from now things will change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Rao, for this interesting presentation and overview on really what technology, science and technology can do in order to improve the situation. So now we will call our presenters to come to the stage in order to make the discussion. Please join us. Again, thank you very much for your very nice presentation. It was really easy to moderate this session because everyone was on time. So now I will open the discussion for the audience. Please. Please come.
One of the participants in the symposium showed several of us an application. My question is for Professor He. Showed us an application on his smartphone that was a graph of air quality in Beijing. And it showed quite a significant peak and trough pattern that seemed to be a 6 or 7 day cycle. And he explained that his understanding was that the plants were fired up and allowed to operate until the air quality got to such a bad level it was dangerous, and then they were turned off and the air quality improved significantly. And again, it was quite a clear day when we arrived on Wednesday. His application showed that it was already starting back up towards the danger level. Could you comment, is this a conscious policy here in Beijing? One, and what's the wisdom of it if it is? And two, could you indicate whether or not your figures that you showed us were peak, trough, or average? I would guess they're probably average. And maybe you could reflect on how many days a year the air quality in Beijing is at the danger level.
Thank you for your question. So this is, we call it some kind of cycle. We have some research on it within recent 10 or 15 years. So our record is, it's 5 to 7 days, sometimes it's 10 days. They have one, we call it soul type of that. So the majority reason is meteorological circle in this area. So we're also doing a comparison study in some of the U.S. cities. They have the similar, but the peak is relatively lower. So we have the one publication 2009 in JGR to talk about the issue. So I think it's not so sensitive. We can switch on or off for the emission. So it's difficult. But the good news is within recent 5 years, especially last the year 2017, so in average, this circle will a little bit longer, which means your emission getting lower, and then the peak will come. Before it's five days for each. Now it's more than 10 days for each. So that is why I think that is getting better. So recently, tomorrow Beijing will have one episode. Tomorrow will be no blue sky. But October 1st is a national day in China. We have more than 10 years of records. The first week of the October, they always have one episode. But this year, there is no such kind of episode, but it's taken a longer time. Tomorrow is already 40, which means we have insisted on 14 days. So you get a lower emission and you get a longer time, which means you reduce the number of episodes. Thank you.
Back there.
Hi, I'm McDonnell Scholar, Campinas School, National University. So thank you for the panelists to describe your country, your policy to make improve the air condition. Actually, so my question actually is simple. So I want to ask, because there's an elephant in the room which actually doesn't come into the place in your presentation. Actually, is how when you do all of this air pollution control, what is the economy growth that's considered at the same time? And my question actually, more specific is, consider in China right now, we start to see the stagnant of the economic growth. And how much actually those reduction is just because the wage increase, people ask for more quality, and then they can pay for more, like a heating price or electricity bill, and that actually help with the technology to intervene air pollution. But not actually is the resolution of the government really want to meet any standard environmentally. So I want to have a comment on those. Thanks.
So your question is for who? For everybody?
Thank you for the question, but I can give this genuine answer from the point of view of our country. As I have mentioned also in my presentation, starting in the 70s, we have a really big air quality problem in our country, but by taking some legislative precautions and changing the fuel type and etc., and taking some preventive techniques, we start to reduce the quality, we start to increase the air quality in our country in many areas, but still we have a problem. But the question to consider this problem overall countries, and we have to increase the relationship with the neighboring countries and bring our own legislative precautions to the similar levels and considering the same directives to control this problem. You can say this.
I think the presentation also mentioned the energy and environment are very closely linked. As the countries prosper, the energy requirements grow. I think that is where you need a more comprehensive policy to address the pollution issues. And people, as they get wealthier, the more vehicles on the streets and what fuel the vehicles will use, what pollution norms the vehicles will follow. I think these are issues that we need to address. And unfortunately, for a country which is progressing, the environment is not something governments look at first. They think that let us get wealthy and then address the problem. But I think it doesn't work that way. For governments to realize that the growth in economy and the environment are need to be done alongside. Is one thing which doesn't happen, unfortunately, at least in India. I think the focus seems to be you grow first and you become wealthier and then let us address it later. I think it's not working for us. And now people are realizing it. A lot of public pressure in the last 5 years, or in fact in the last 2-3 years, I have seen enormous awareness about pollution problems in the country. I think that is putting government under pressure. So now I think things will act and the governments will act and something might change.
Okay, now,
Well, thank you very much for those 3 wonderful presentations. This question is particularly for the India and China cases where we expect to still see large growth of cities and large growth of infrastructure. And so I'm wondering if you see opportunities, really a leapfrogging opportunity as the infrastructure gets built out to not repeat the case of Europe or the United States, real opportunities there. So that's kind of the general question. And the specific one is the role of electric vehicles and how important you see those being. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So first one for the infrastructure. Your question is for the future. So if you want to get a better future, you have to summarize how important the infrastructure for the relations with today's problem for blue sky. So the first one we have to do in a historical study for the governments. Say, before you have doing something wrong for the infrastructure, and then the emission inventory will show how large proportion is from this wrong option. And then we have to, today we have to do something to improve the air quality. End of pipe, we have to do that. And also I have shown if you do further, for example, for Beijing, we have to improve from 85 for the PM 2.5. Today is 50, about 50. So there is a majority, is the end of pipe. But you cannot repeat the end of pipe in the future. So you have to include the infrastructure issues. So that is why I just showed you. Today's China will have 2 shoulder tasks, blue sky and low carbon. And recently, blue sky is major driving force. So everybody understanding and the people like blue sky, so they're supporting the policy from the government. So I think that is a very important positive factor to improve the future infrastructure. So because of time, I cannot get the detail. And for the electric vehicle, that's a similar choice. So we have to show, for example, for Beijing, we have every 3 or 2 years, we have a new circle of the source apportionments. So 5 years ago, transportation contributes 31% for the PM2.5 in Beijing, and today it's 45 already. And then we will say the solution is you have to get the better engine technology, cleaner, relatively cleaner fuel, but in the longer future, for example, 2030 or 2035, if you want to finally meet the 35 standards, for Beijing case, at least 40% of the vehicle should be electricity. Otherwise, there is no way to meet the national standard. So that's the conclusion already to the central government and Beijing municipal government. Thank you.
just add one important aspect to this. When you talk about infrastructure, usually governments tend to focus on infrastructure in the cities, the bigger cities, and because that is visible and that's where they tend to focus on. But in India particularly, our biggest challenge today is migration of people from rural areas to these cities. And that is causing two problems for us. One is because the people move from rural areas to cities. Now there is a labor problem in the rural areas. Agriculture is suffering very seriously. And these people who move to the cities, they also create the slums. They don't have a place to live, and then you see all these slums in our big cities, mainly because of that. We need to increase or improve the infrastructure all over the country, particularly starting with the rural areas, and that I think the government has realized there are major programs which is happening. But on the electric vehicles front, Government of India became over ambitious. In fact, if you have read the news about 1 year ago, government said that by 2030, all petrol diesel vehicles will be replaced by electric vehicles. That was such a major announcement one minister made, our transport minister, and that created a flutter in all the industries, and they said that we are not ready for anything like that by 2030, but government is aggressive now. But I think our issue is electric vehicles with coal as the energy supply will not solve this problem too much. We need to use renewable sources for charging these vehicles, but that would involve setting up these recharging stations and all that. But in a place like Delhi, the two-wheelers, the motorcycles, they contribute 30% to the air pollution. Now they can be more easily replaced with electric bikes, and that is where a lot of startups are now working. I think it has begun now. I'm sure it will take a little bit of time. I do think 10 years ago we would have done all of those, but maybe now with the availability of technologies, I think in the next 5 years I'm hopeful things will change.
Here is a question.
Fascinating presentations. I just wanted to know from China, what is the role of public? What role did public play in this? Because the government did it and so on. But what role did the public play? And what are some of the learnings from that that India can have? Because I think it's all about people. So I would be very interested in how did you get to this blue sky actually?
Very good question. Recent 5 years, when we talk about 5 years ago, they have relatively serious, especially in winter time, the haze pollution. So the media and through the internet, the public involvement has very strong. And also now in China, I think the very important is since 2012, they have opening all of the detailed information hourly. For example, in Beijing, we have more than 40 monetary staging, and you can check that hourly. So everyone knows about that. And also they have a monthly ranking for the more than 150 cities. So if they want several cities ranking top 10 worst, and then they will get in trouble. So the mayor will be getting TV newspaper, so they get a very strong pressure. And also this city, the housing price were getting lower, the number of the tourists were reduced, and the foreign the investments were reduced. So I think that is a very strong public involvement. So when the mayor talks about with me, say I really eager to do something to improve the air quality. Because if you lose the blue sky and you lose the opportunity for growth of the economy. Thank you.
I believe we have time for one extra question over there. Maybe we can try to do 2 or 3.
Yeah, very quickly, a related follow-up, maybe to all of that. There were 3 very fascinating presentations. What is your comment on, we use instruments which are very expensive. 100K is the minimum price maybe of a good instrument. But now there is a social revolution. I can get a PM sensor for maybe $10 and put it in my pocket. Actually, I have one in my room. monitoring your air quality in real time. What is your comment on low-cost sensors and this becoming a data science problem?
Let's two extra questions and then we close. Okay, please.
During the fourth conference or symposium in this series, we were in Mumbai, and in Mumbai we had a workshop on air pollution. I don't know if you, Professor, if you were there as well, but the Indian professors were very much concerned with the air pollution issues in India. This was in 2012. Now we are 6 years ahead. Do you think there has been improvement in those 6 years, in the last 6 years, especially in rural areas which do not have electricity as well as the capital big cities?
The last question here, yes, please.
I have a question. I still remember last fall I was doing field work in China, and this is related to creating blue sky. Due to the Congress Party last year, there were lots of industry was kind of stopped, postponed, or shut down before the Congress meeting. And then I was doing my field work and talking with some farmers who were doing some part-time jobs at the construction site. And then they suddenly told me that, this month we are not allowed to go to do our work because we need to create the blue sky. And so it's really nice to see that government is trying to create or solve the problem for air pollution. But at the same time, there are some voices from local scale. They don't really know how to face their daily life due to this policy, and they immediately have to face the shortage of income. And I wonder that the government should deal with these kinds of issues when they are dealing with a bigger issue for this country or another country. Thank you.
So first, let me answer Professor Biswa's question about the low-cost sensor. So actually, now in China, you see a huge potential market for that. Because I just mentioned each city, they have national standard station to evaluate the air quality, the levels. And then if you're using the low cost, you can get very detailed, very high density. For example, in Beijing, you have about 40 national standard stations, but they have 1,500 small, low costs. But they can use that to understand it's not the air quality, even the source, because it's very small area. So once they have sensor getting alarm, they have some platform that they will immediately announce somebody, say, if you should look at this area, what happened, why the SO2 is getting higher. So more and more Chinese cities has to use that to do something like the inspection system. So I think that's a huge potential in the future. And the third question, I think, is related to China. So yes, we have to do some temporary, like say, shut down or reduce the production for the industry. But today, it's not because of the People's Congress conference. We have the air quality forecast system. So you have red, orange alarm, and then they have matched some of the control measures. So before, for example, in Beijing Olympic Game 10 years ago, we're getting some big activities in Beijing and we do something. Personally, I understand that this is a short term, but it's very critical for this understand the science and technology. We have the air quality forecast system, but it's the result from the computer. But now if you do something, every time we have the records for what we have done for the emission reduction temporarily, what happened for the air quality improvements. So we have doing some temporary, the next big experiment is a full-scale experiment. So, and then they can giving them more confidence for the top leader in central governments and local leaders. They say, it's really understand. I can do that shortly, and if I do that for 1 year, 5 years, I can get blue sky. So really follow that short-term direction, but do something for long-term. I think that is very critical for the policymaker confidence. Thank you.
Well, I can say 2 words about, first of all, as we know, air pollution does not remain in local boundaries. Therefore, the global issues and the collaborations becomes very important from this point of view. And in our case, in our country case, when we discovered the importance of air pollution in the 1970s, and we have taken a lot of precautions, and when we reach 2000 years, we feel more safe from the point of view of air pollution. But nowadays, in the last 5-6 years, we try to understand that air pollution becomes a real problem again in our country because, for example, one of the big cities in the world, Istanbul's population reaches to 15-16 million, and the capital of Turkey has reached to 7 million. So we need more precautions again, but that's why I said it's not a local problem. That's why the collaboration and the global issues becomes very important in this aspect. Thank you.
Mr. Rao. The low-cost sensor is a very important project. In fact, at IIT Delhi, there is a major project now to set up those sensors in the Delhi region and use your mobile phone to know what is the pollution levels. So there is an initiative on that. But I think unless we measure, I think the public opinion will not change and public pressure will only become higher if they are able to get that data. I think it has to happen. I do think that the sensor technologies need to become much more common and we should find them everywhere. And has anything changed in India? The question that he has asked. I think India has lots of problems. Air pollution is one of them. But things are changing now. If you see our solar push, the renewable energy push now is highest in India right now. But unfortunately, we don't have enough land. So the one issue for us from solar point of view is rooftop solar is the only way we can go solar in a large scale. But government target is 175 gigawatts of solar energy by 2022, and they are on target already. So I think that is one of the reasons why they are doing that. Even the CO2 emissions are being closely monitored. India, though energy consumption is increasing, our CO2 emissions, I am told, are being checked, and we are signatories for the Paris Agreement, and the government is monitoring that. The electric vehicle push is also very serious in India right now. Government is coming up with all kinds of policies to encourage electric vehicles. I think things are changing. In a democracy, it takes a little bit longer to solve problems. I think that is what we are saying.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I was asked to stop exactly at 2:36. I believe we are on spot. So thank you very much for the panelists. I would like to ask everyone to thank the panel. Thank you very much.